Hello, and welcome back to i94 podcast. It's me, Mumbles, Devo, and Rico. And in light of what's going on in Chicago today with Laquan McDonald and police officer Jason Van Dyke, we have former Chicago PD Ali Ben Bey. Today we're going to talk about what's the major issue behind all of these killings. Is it racism? Is it just targeting a certain specific person, i.e. black men? Or is it to serve and protect?
So we have our guest on today, and we just want to get some perspective from somebody who actually served as a Chicago police officer to maybe be able to shed some light on the events that take place not only here in Chicago but across the United States. So my first question would be is, what made you want to become a police officer?
Well, I felt that we needed someone to represent us in that capacity. If there's not a black man around to give a black man a break, a fair shake, then who would give a black man a fair shake? And I wanted to serve and protect my community. I know it sounds kind of corny, but that was my real ideology and method to be able to do so.
Mm-hmm. In light of everything that we've, been seeing that goes on across this nation, whether it be with Sandra Bland, with Mike Brown, with Freddie Gray, recently what Mama spoke to, Laquan McDonald, and even with Ronald Johnson. What is your opinion about the events that take place with police just seem like they just murder us at will with no thought about it, where it's like, oh, I fear it for my life?
Well, first of all, we must understand that America in itself is an unfair, biased situation.
Mm-hmm.
It was formed by slave owners
Mm-hmm.
to keep their slaves in check, and the laws were made for that purposes. And what happens is, even though it's 450 years later, those laws are still on the books, and the way they adjudicate the law reflects that. The only reason why we have Laquan and all these other people is because we're in the social media era.
Mm.
People have been getting shot on the street
Since
by the
forever.
police forever, Now, I have had a chance to travel abroad, and the police are much stricter and have much stricter laws in Arab countries, Mexico. You go to Spain, the rules are more strict, but they're dealt out like that to everyone.
Mm.
Whereas the laws here in America are dealt more across racial lines.
Right.
So that's the difference. And what happens is they have a lot of good white policemen.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that's Caucasian is not
It's not a racist. It's not a bigot.
racist, right? The ones that have been socialized and been around blacks more, they tend to be more fair
Mm-hmm.
and more understanding. Chicago is a very segregated city. You have white people who are police officers that grew up in neighborhoods and they never had any
To interface with black people.
Right, they never interface with black people. So what they see basically is on TV.
So you're policing a stereotype instead of policing actual people.
Right. So now you're a policeman, you have a gun, you're scared of the big black man.
Right.
The big black man, that's the most fearful thing in the world. And what happens is, I have a gun and I'm not gonna let that black man take over. And usually if you have more black officers, those white officers tend to use a little more restraint, or they get to know black men better. Everybody that's black is not, excuse the word, I hate this word, but this is what they use. Everybody that's black is not a nigger.
Mm-hmm.
There's different classes of all kind of people.
Right.
And they just have a stereotypical view of the violent black man.
Being that you were an officer for 23 years?
26.
26 years. Did you have to deal with any type of institutional racism being a Chicago police officer? I know
Sure.
we spoke earlier and you said you came in towards the end of Mayor Harold Washington's term. So can you kind of just speak to how things were back then and versus how they are today, or is there any difference today
Yes,
in light of
different.
having social media?
It was different. There was a difference right after he died. Right after he died, it was a bravado, a swagger. It was nothing that you could say, you're a racist, but you could see the change in the department upon his death. People start, he's gone, but they wouldn't say that. But
Right.
You could
feel the body language.
Feel the body language and the temperament of the police department. Now, the Chicago Police Department, as in most police departments, they don't tend to hire the average black man. The ones they hire are usually of superior intellect to their white counterparts. An average black man usually doesn't get a chance to be a police officer too often anywhere. That's why the numbers are lower per ratio of the complex and the makeup of the city. So Chicago is like 48% black, but in Chicago we only make up maybe 15% of the
Police department.
police department. When I came on the police department, there were 14 black lieutenants. When I retired, there were 12. So that lets you know what we're up against,
After 26 years, it was only 12.
Right.
So, with it being such a low number of blacks in the police department, or in the department here in the city, are you guys separated to, I guess, I don't know if police certain areas? Like, are you only put into
right
an area where you're dealing with
so our
black
people can see black people. It's smoke and mirrors. They put us with high visibility in black communities where it looks they can fudge the numbers. If you were to go to Jefferson Park, if you would even go to Mayor Daley's old district, there are not many blacks there. Not many blacks would even want to work there. But if you go north or west, far west, northwest, you don't see many black officers. And now it's to the point now you don't even see many black young officers in our community.
So is that by design?
Yes,
I was just going to ask that because, we got so many people that we went to school with that get criminal justice degrees, and the first thing they want to become when they get back is they be like, well, I want to be a police officer. And then I've watched a lot of them struggle just to even try to get in for...
Well, first of all, a racist officer has it within his capacity to catch a white car. I'll give you an example. A white car thief and a black car thief. They're teenagers, maybe 15, 16 years old.
Right.
The white car thief might be taken into the station. His parents called. His parents write a check to the person who owned the vehicle, and there's no case report. There's no nothing. They adjudicated the situation. Little Bobby goes home, and that's it. But in our community, we bear the brunt of police reports. So now you're jaded. Once you get a felony, you're jaded. That's the end of the fire department. That's the end of the sometimes the military. That's the end of
a lot.
Police department.
Yeah.
So now you're limited on what you can do, and they can use that against you in employment. So it limits what you can do. So that makes the streets more viable and more attractive to a young black person.
Yeah, that's right.
Being that you were an officer, can you speak to the training that you guys received or did receive in the police academy? And if that's the case, speaking to the training, like, why is it that we see so many Caucasian officers, the first thing they think to do is grab a gun and shoot us instead of going for maybe a taser or going for some pepper spray? What type of training do you guys receive to where we won't see what we continue to be seeing, whereas like it's an altercation, something happens, first thing you do, you pull out a gun and I'm dead, versus where you may stop a Caucasian person and you don't hear about these type of stories?
Well, first of all, black officers, white officers go to the same police academy.
Right, right.
So they're trained the same way.
The same way, right.
It's just like when the Rodney King situation came.
Mm-hmm.
They took we had a sensitivity course we had to take. They showed the movie. The white guys, the white officers saw an entirely different situation than what the black officers saw.
But y'all received the same training, but they interpreted something totally different.
It was interpreted by the Caucasian officers that he was resisting arrest. The black officers said they beat him into submission.
Yeah, I mean,
and when that didn't work, out of pain, he started moving around again.
That's what I mean. That's any human being.
And no one reached out to put handcuffs on him.
So how can you resist arrest if you whooping my ass and it's a natural reaction for me to try to move around because I'm in pain? Like, how can I just lay there and...
I saw a video like that a couple weeks ago on Facebook. There was a girl riding in a car and she was on an Uber ride.
Yeah.
And she saw the police had this young man detained on the ground. It was a black man, it was a white cop. And the black guy was handcuffed. And I don't know what the situation was before he got there. But in the midst of him being handcuffed, the police was hitting him in the head with the stick that he had. And then, he kept knocking him in the head. But he kept telling the guy, stop moving, you're going to resist arrest. But
he already handcuffed him.
He was already handcuffed. And in the midst of his head being knocked, he was moving because that's the only thing he could do.
In pain, that's a natural reaction.
Away from what was being done.
In academy, in the police, I can't speak for most academies.
You can speak for Chicago.
I can speak for Chicago and other police departments that are trained at the Chicago Police Department.
So wait, so other police departments are trained at the Chicago Police Academy?
Yes.
Really?
Right. The training states that once a combatant is compliant, he is no longer a threat.
A threat.
So you use the pain to produce the
compliance.
The compliance. Once the compliance is in, there's no need for more pain. And a lot of times, not just white officers, black officers too, it's human nature. Sometimes if you're having a fight with someone and you get so worked up, you get tunnel vision, and it's hard to stop sometime when you get angry.
Right.
That's why you have other police officers there around you, because it's their job to stop you when you've gone too far. And at what point does a person who's a police officer become a felon? If you're standing around and some other police officers beating a guy or shooting a guy 16 times,
shouldn't you be?
You're supposed to act in a manner to negate that activity which is unlawful, no matter who does it. So that's the problem. And those kind of things from the good old boys club has not been enforced like it should. Now, the other side of the coin is, say I'm Joe Average black police officer, and the guy in the next car is Joe Average bigot.
Right.
I gotta back him up, because when I'm riding through the ghetto and I'm getting stomped on the head, who other than him is gonna come to my rescue? It won't be the citizens, the black citizens, because we have a jaded view of the police. Yeah. Right. No citizen is gonna come help me if somebody's beating me merciless.
But what if they did help though? You know what I'm saying? Like if you're in a situation like that, like how would that work? You know what I'm saying? Where like you said, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons why we don't see the quote unquote good cop or good cops speak, to this issue that we keep saying, which is police brutality. Whereas, if you and I are partners and I know you dirty and I know you doing something, I'm gonna be more hesitant to blow the whistle on you out of the fear that I'll ostracize myself to where I'll be alienated by everybody else in the department. And if this is the profession that I've gone into, which helps me feed my family, am I really going to jeopardize me taking care of my family just to oust you or oust the system in itself?
Right. That's a good point. You guys are kind of young, but they had a movie called Serpico with Al Pacino. And he was a New York policeman. He wouldn't take bribes. He wouldn't go into none of that stuff that they do.
Right.
He was almost like a hippie. And what happens is the police officers, the department put him in a position where he could get hurt. He got shot in the face. He retired from the police department, sued them, and moved to Switzerland. So it's just not the black officers. I depend on Joe Bigot for my well-being. But the numbers, if the numbers were fair, I wouldn't have to depend on Joe Bigot for I'd have more black officers who have my back, but it's not like that. It's not like that.
Right.
See that. So I guess when you got into the police, got into this field, so to say, and you kind of saw a lot of the differences as far as like the segregation and stuff like that with white police officers and black police officers, and how did you adjust to the system yourself over the 26 years?
Well, really, growing up in the 50s and 60s, I was already acclimated to that type of racism.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a little different coming up that way. When the police used to just drive up, we be playing basketball, and they might just get out. What are you niggas doing? And start slapping.
And this was like how they was talking to y'all.
Start slapping us around.
And there wasn't nothing you could really do about
Nothing
it.
you could really do. Get in the car and drive off.
Wasn't no cell phones. And
Right.
recording.
When I was 19,
Boy.
I was arguing with a girlfriend I had, and the police jumped out the car and broke my arm. So my generation deals with the police a little different than your generation or the younger generation. If I had a knife in my hand at that age and the police were following me, I'd have dropped that knife so fast and put my hands behind my head. That's what we did in the 60s.
Right.
Because that was the nature of the environment.
Right. There were no cell phones. There was no cameras on buildings. So if we got killed, we were just dead. And whatever they said happened. So now the rules haven't changed, but the social media is there now.
Right.
If you remember a while back, they had a police officer that got into a confrontation with a homeless man, where he killed the homeless man. The only reason why the homeless man was able to get some type of retribution is because he worked for the Streetwise newspaper. He had a medium behind him to champion his plight. Now everyone has a cell phone. Now, other side of the coin is, suppose a guy, now hypothetically speaking, walked up to a police officer and slapped him. And the police officer grabbed him and started tussling with him. Now the cameras are on.
Right.
The camera didn't see the slap. Yeah. They just saw the police officer. Why is he doing that?
Right.
You know, I remember once I was chasing a pedophile who had molested a 3-year-old kid. I chased him down the alley, and it was a bistro, and people were sitting out, on the patio at the restaurant eating.
Right.
So he ran through the alley around the corner. I tackled him, grabbed him aggressively, and put the handcuffs on him. And he said, "Why is he doing that to that man?"
He was a Caucasian?
Yeah.
That's why you got to ask that question.
Why is he doing that to that man?
Right.
And I'm doing police work.
Right.
So I can imagine sometimes it happens in our community where a white officer is chasing the guy down. You really don't know what he did or what he deserves or what's happening. All you see is the aftermath. You see the end of the story.
The end result.
Right. So there is no cut and dry.
But what about the situations that it is? Like, for example, we go back to the Sandra Bland situation. I don't know if you saw the footage of it, but, she was stopped. The cop got out the car. He was having a conversation with her. And from my opinion, I'm not a police officer, so I don't have the training. I don't have the eye for what you guys are trained to look for, but she was answering his questions. But from what I got from it, she didn't know her place, and she was talking back. Where he was asking her questions, she felt like, yeah, I do have an attitude because I feel like you bother me and whatever the case is. And he asked her to put out her cigarette. And she felt like, well, I'm in my car. I don't have to.
Well, I have had a cigarette butt thumped in my face. So that can be conceived as a weapon.
So can't...
I would have did the same thing. Put the cigarette out.
Right. Okay. So you would have did the same thing. But after that, he told her to exit her vehicle. Is that protocol?
Yes. If you feel threatened that the person... See, in a vehicle, I could have a gun under my seat.
Right.
I could have it under my armrest. I could have it in backing me. So I ask you to exit the vehicle because for some reason I feel uncomfortable. That's the law. That's to protect the police officer. Now, what you do when that person gets out, that's where it goes. After the person gets out and you do a custodial, you have a right by law, right? By the Supreme Court law, you have a right to do a custodial search. That's to make sure that to render the person safe, make sure they don't have any weapons or anything that can hurt you or himself. Once you do that, you ascertain, is this a crime or is this just a stop where I'm gonna let this person go on their way?
Right.
But you have a right to detain the person. If I put my hand on your arm and you pull away from me, that can be construed as resisting arrest under the color of the law. If I put my hand on you,
and I do like that, and I snatch away,
that can be considered resisting arrest.
But if you don't inform me that I'm under arrest,
how do you know that you're under arrest?
You haven't even told me what crime I've committed.
A police officer has the right to touch you. He has the right to do a custodial search. If you turn to walk away and he puts his hand on your arm and you pull away, that's resisting arrest.
Which in turn could get you arrested.
Right. Right. So the law has made rules to protect the law.
I wish I knew when that law was created. The resisting arrest part with the hand being touched. I wish I knew.
I mean, but
if you out, here's a scenario. You outweigh me by 30, 40 pounds.
Right.
And I put my hand on you because I want you close to me because I don't want this to get out of hand. If anything, I don't want you in swinging distance. I want to be where I can grab you or whatever I need to do. So if I put my hand on your arm in a non-aggressive manner, why would you pull away?
But why you touching me though?
Because I have to touch you to search you.
What you searching me for though? Especially if you haven't informed me of these things. Like, I don't consent to any searches. But don't you have to consent first before a police officer searches you?
In Chicago, the law states you have a right. Well, that's constitutional law too. A police officer has the right to ask to detain anyone, to ask them to produce identification and whatever else information he needs. That's under the color of law. When you veer away from that or become aggressive, now you become a passive aggressive resistor.
Now what constitutes being aggressive? Is it the tone of my voice? Is it the way that I look at you? Like,
basically not complying.
Is it firm? Is it in the grab? Like,
it's basically just not complying to whatever they're saying.
They're not complying.
Yeah.
The perfect way, especially for a black man in today's world, in today's America, the proper way for his safety. I'm not saying that it's ethically right or
morally right or any of that.
See, black people, we're an animated people.
Yeah.
We move around a lot. Hand movement, moving around. And if the police officer is already scared of you, that can be
considered aggressive. You're a threat now because I don't know what you're about to do.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I already know you're more physical than me.
Right.
So I'm not going to let you. A policeman will never get shot in the back because even if he's scared, he's going to get more aggressive. The scarier he is, the more aggressive you're trained to be. That's why you've never heard of a police officer getting shot in the back, because he's not going to run. I know that sounds crazy, but have you ever heard?
No, I don't though.
Have you ever heard of a police officer getting shot in the back?
No.
I ain't never heard a police officer getting shot. Period.
Well, they get shot.
Yeah, they get shot.
They do.
I got shot before, so
they get shot.
They get shot.
Just not in the back.
Right.
Not in the back, because he's not going to run. And you're trained. The more fearful you are, the more intimidating and menacing you make yourself.
So basically, like, we have people dying from gunshots, going to the prisons and dying, and going to the prisons being beat on to death. Like, what would you suggest, like, black people, like, to prevent these type things or kind of prevent?
Is it even preventable?
Yeah.
You know, because you have people to say, you know, I'm
Well,
dressed this way so I don't get stereotyped.
Have you ever heard of an Illinois state policeman beating someone? Have you ever heard of an Illinois state policeman shooting someone an accessible amount of times? Okay, so obviously it's training. It's training. Obviously it's training. I don't know because, you know, because I'm not an educator, I'm not a criminologist, but there's got to be another way to train your officers where they're more respectful. When you get stopped by a state policeman, it's almost like an honor. Excuse me, sir. I noticed you were going so and so and so miles over the limit. Could I see your license, please? That's non-threatening. That's non-intimidating. But then again, that state policeman, he doesn't work in the depressed neighborhoods with a lot of violence, and he's not handling a lot of calls. For instance, say I get a call of a domestic. I climb 3 flights of stairs. I get up there and I gotta fight one of the residents. I gotta fight him to get him in handcuffs. As soon as I get him in a car, 10 minutes later, I get a call to come see you. Now you're loud, you're angry because you got stopped. I'm already on 10. No one can calm down that fast. So now you're dealing with the aftermath from the last situation. That happens too. So there is no cut and dry. There is no right and wrong. There is a right and wrong, but there is no cut and dry on why it happens. The best thing that young people today can do, which they don't do, is learn how to deal with that situation psychologically. You can take control of an aggressive police officer just by talking in low, mellow tones. He has to quiet down just to hear what you're saying. Plus, he looks like a fool if he's ranting and raving and slamming you around and you're in compliance and you're not yelling.
I like what you just said right there. I like how you say what the youth, today's youth needs to do is kind of learn how to approach and assess police officers and kind of get a better understanding of the law. Because in majority of these shootings, they're running.
We just responded. We emotional
Right.
because we've had this training through life that tells us you should be afraid of the police. Anytime you see them, regardless of color, stay away from them. So when they do talk to you, you do have an attitude. You are emotional. So you haven't really received any type of training to know how to interface with police officers.
Right, correct.
I was gonna say this though. My thing is with youth as well is that they're aggressive first.
Right.
So like that's the first characteristic or type that comes out when you approach a situation. Just even when you've been today, a parent today, sometimes and you talk to your kid about something, like the first thing is aggression. So if you look at a lot of situations that happen in media and stuff like that, when it comes to cops, they look at the stuff, they hear the stuff, so they already have a jaded approach as well. So now you got two ends now. Like when he talked earlier, when you said that when you bring in a white cop and how they looking at everything in the media and they stereotype. Vice versa is kind of going the same way, even with our youth and kind of with the black community, because it's a jaded effect. So now, in essence, if I'm constantly seeing the things I see in social media with Laquan getting shot, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, I'm steady seeing this stuff happen. I'm automatically aggressive when the cops comes to me. So psychologically,
I think it can happen to
I'm
me.
already woke because I feel like that could
be me. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's because I'm from the 50s, but that would give me more reason
to kind of
chill out.
But see, and see, I think too, to speak to that, like you grew up in a different era where that was the norm for black men to be fearful of white men.
But I'm also part of the Black Panther movement, the emerging black awareness. I was part of that too.
Yeah.
Even the Black Panthers didn't get aggressive with the police when they were stopped. Why are you stopping me, sir?
They knew the law.
Under the constitutional law,
Yeah.
I have the right to so. So when that happens, it made the police officer say, man, I better not do nothing weird to this guy because he knows the law. And it will come back and bite me. As opposed to, I know my rights, and you're moving around with your hands, you know.
And you really don't know your rights.
You really don't know your rights. Like
just yelling it.
Right. Like
That's a scare tactic.
If Laquan knew his rights, he would still be alive, possibly.
But in like the Trayvon Martin case, like, you know, granted that was the law, the stand your ground. If you feel threatened, you can shoot to kill. But he wasn't in the wrong at all.
Who wasn't Trayvon?
Yeah.
Well, in Illinois, we don't have a stand your ground. Secondly,
Thank God.
as a police officer, and this might sound, it doesn't matter because I'm not a police officer anymore. I just would have rolled up real close to him going about 15 miles an hour and opened the car door.
You talking about Laquan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what me and my partner would have did because we've been in situations like that with a guy with a gun.
Or even just a tackle because he had his back turned.
No, I'm not going, I got a family. I would drive up beside him and just open the car door. The car door would knock him down. Now, that's not in the general orders per se, but he would have been alive.
But you use your own discretion pretty much.
I always use my own discretion because it's my life.
So is it safe to say that most police officers do use their own discretion when dealing, you know, with young black males, where it's like, you look at how I look. I have the stereotypical appearance of somebody that is a troublemaker. I got dreads. I got facial hair. You know, I'm young. I'm black. So you get a call about somebody that fits my description, and you come and interface with me, and my response is already threatening to you because you already fear me anyway.
Well, you know, I was trained by some very good old school Irish policemen, and we used to use what we call the nice monster syndrome. If a guy is physically imposing, and you know you're going to really work to subdue him, nice monster, calm down, man. Come go with me before the other guys get here. There are ways to take control psychologically, but when a situation gets like that situation developed, black officers are more apt to put on their leather gloves, get out the car, and take the knife from them. And there were no black officers there. White officers, especially the racist ones, they act differently when there's a large presence of black police officers, which in Chicago we have none. So, you know, and another thing, I've seen a situation where a black lieutenant had a hard time telling white police officers what to do.
What to do, give orders.
Right. You see what I'm saying? So
it's just a vicious cycle.
This is Chicago. This is the land of hinky dinky
Al Capone.
Mayor
Davis.
with the prostitutes. This
This is a city under the table,
right.
man.
That's the problem, man. That's the problem.
So plus, we don't have enough police officers in Chicago for the capital, for the people. In LA, for instance, they're very aggressive because LA has more population.
It's overpopulated.
It's overpopulated and larger than Chicago, and they have less police. So the police mindset there is to be ultra aggressive. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't have the numbers, so you got to be enforced. You got to be, you know. Then you have people who fall through the cracks, who get hurt when they're not really the type of people that the laws were made for. That's why you're supposed to assess each situation on its own merits. Now, take that situation. They're following him down the street. He's got a small penknife in his hand. Suppose they'd have kept following him and didn't close in on him, and a lady was walking down the street with a baby in a stroller, and he just stabbed the baby. What would the people say then?
Where was the police at?
They were right there. Why didn't they do anything?
Right.
So you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there is no clear-cut answer to these problems, but there are solutions. There are solutions. First of all, there should be more black police officers. There should be more black supervisors with real authority. When I was on the police department, the first deputy always took care of the promotions, the assignments, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
First deputy was white. when we got a black first deputy and a white superintendent, then he handled all of that. So that's Chicago. That's the way Chicago is. It's not right, and the mayor was put in an institutionalized problem that had been going on since the first black policeman.
Talking about this current man?
Ron
Yeah,
Ray.
man.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
not,
I can see that.
It's not something
Yeah,
that
it's not that-
he was
something
over his
that-
head in that situation. It was nothing he could really do. The first black policeman was hired because he was a carpenter, and they hired him to rebuild the first black police station. In the 50s, black police officers were dropped off at their beats by white officers because they didn't have cars for black officers. Black officers had to walk.
So we couldn't even drive then. We just got dropped off.
You got dropped off on your beat. So we're talking, and we're not talking that long ago. That's in the 50s.
In the 50s.
You know what I'm saying? So those guys who dropped the guys off, their kids are the bosses now.
So it just keeps going.
I was going to say that, like,
Yeah.
same thing go with the system, like how.
And if you notice in a press conference a while back, when the superintendent of the police were there, didn't you see more black faces in back of him? Those black faces are deputy chiefs. That's his command staff. When the mayor or the superintendent of the police talks now, count the blacks standing behind them.
It's not that many.
Not that many.
I don't think I've seen any.
Plus, discipline is doled out differently.
What do you mean when you say it's doled out differently?
Okay. The officer shot somebody 16 times.
Van Dyke.
Right.
Right.
A black officer probably wouldn't have made it that long.
Of course not. He wouldn't have been on no desk duty.
Right.
But and that, so I guess that's the whole issue that the black community has as a whole. Whereas we know these things, it's in our face. Whereas if you're a black officer and you shoot little Billy 16 times, you're not getting no trial, you're not getting no desk job, you fired, and you in jail probably the same day.
Right. Just like the black deputy who's in trouble now. That allegedly inappropriately used his weapon on a victim. A white commander, I don't know. I don't know if that would have went down like it did.
So I guess it's the question, like, who oversees all of this? Like,
Well,
you know, whereas Van Dyke, this happened a year ago. The higher ups knew about it because it's paperwork that has to be filled out, right?
Right.
So you know about these things, but nothing is said. You're able to just be moved
the
around.
the chief of detectives, who is now their interim superintendent of police, he was at that time chief of detectives. And you mean to tell me a police officer had a shooting and he didn't
know about it?
He didn't read see what
The
was
report,
happening?
nothing.
I find that hard to believe.
Anybody with common sense would find that hard to believe.
But that's Chicago. That's Chicago politics. Chicago
it
has
has
its own
been.
set of politics and its own way of doing things. And I'm glad we are in the age of the social media and the cell phone to bring some of these things to light so we can make a change, because it doesn't have to be like this.
It's hard to want to be a part of that system, though, man. Like,
Man,
I mean,
I took the test.
I know we need more black, you know what I'm saying, more black people to be represented in that field to kind of help us.
But it's
out
like-
there.
Well, it's like this: either we do it or they do it.
That's true.
So that was my
That was
thought.
your
Right.
mindset.
The lesser of the evil,
Right,
basically,
right.
to a certain degree.
Right.
Because I took a cut and
like
pay
voting.
to come to the Chicago Police Department. So what happens is, if we don't do it, I
They
think
are
we can do a better job of policing us. than
Yeah, I mean, because we
That's true. I
come
do
from
agree with
us.
that. Because
Right.
I used to want to be a police officer. I think me and him talked about this
I took the
before.
test for it, and I
remember
passed it.
was-
I didn't take the physical test.
Remember when I was doing the test for the University of Chicago?
Yeah,
police and
you was
stuff
telling
like
me about that, yeah.
Like that's what, after I got out of grad school, that's kind of what my mindset was at. But then I kind of faded back from it and just kind of took my interest elsewhere. I still have it here and there from time to time, but kind of watching how a lot of this stuff plays out nowadays and how this
It turns you off from it.
It takes my
Right.
whole
And
mental
it's
away
the
from it.
gentlemen like you who are qualified to get the job that don't apply. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They barely hire the ones that do apply.
Right.
So if a large numbers are qualified, highly qualified. See, there's highly qualified peripheral treatment guys, the political types. Then it's the average guy. For our people, it doesn't get down to the average guy. We only get the highly qualified. For them, they get on because their uncle was a policeman, and
Same thing with fire department.
the fire department is even worse.
That's what their wife. White privilege is amazing.
Right. So, I felt lately I've always been proud to be a Chicago policeman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a highly decorated police officer. I've been wounded in the line of duty. I've saved lives. You know that.
Yeah.
I'm not just a regular police officer, but I never made it beyond the rank and file, even though I was highly qualified.
Why is that?
Because my name is Ali bin Bey. I'm not as controllable. Have you ever seen that on a nameplate? Have you ever seen a nameplate on a policeman with a name like that? Have you ever seen a ultra black policeman rise to a high rank?
Through the ranks?
No. It doesn't. See, first of all, even though you pass the test, you still got to go before a review board.
Right.
And I don't know what kind of questions they ask, but I can imagine. Yeah, I've been before a review board, and the questions are like, "What would you do? What would you do if 3 guys on 63rd Street, one of them was your cousin? What would you do?"
So in a sense, you almost have to lie to get into the position of.
If you're not truly a black man, you don't have to lie. You can tell the truth.
Not truly a black man.
Right.
So
I wouldn't survive then. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm as black as they come, and I'm gonna lose that.
You would be one of the ones. They would say, "Well, go over there and patrol that alley over there. You just stay over there out the way."
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's why my application ain't submitted.
Well, I had 3 kids, so my situation was a little different. I was in survival mode.
Right. And I think that speaks to, just us as a whole, where we just trying to survive, man.
Right.
And it's like we're afraid, we emotional, we frustrated with seeing this same narrative play out time after time again, whereas, okay, you shoot me, you don't go to jail, you're not convicted of anything. Oh, but the city will say, oh, you know what? Oh, we killed this guy. Let's pay his family some millions of dollars. But nobody has ever charged anything. Like, why is that something that keeps happening? Is it because of politics? Is it because of...
It's because it's politically...
Politics.
It's politically correct to get rid of a problem that might come back and bite you and cost you more money.
Exactly.
It's politically correct for me to give you $5 million as opposed to letting it hit the media and going through the process, and now I got to pay $20 million.
Hush money.
So what?
It's
So
a business.
what are your
It's a business.
what is your opinion on the Justice Department allegedly getting ready to investigate Chicago Police Department?
I think it'd be a good thing.
Why so?
Well, first of all, if they are unbiased and they're truly the Justice Department, they're going to find things that aren't right. They're going to find things and procedures. They're going to find things. So there's going to be some changes made here in Chicago. Now, I don't know if Chicago was ready for those changes, but there are going to be some changes made because this can't go on like this. The business people downtown are losing money with the demonstrations.
Right.
The bond rating for insurance for Chicago is going down. Who wants to have a convention here? You know what I'm saying?
Nobody.
So the things that kept Chicago viable are at stake. So they gotta make some changes.
Because it's a business.
It's a business.
Yeah.
It's a business.
In your opinion, how come we have never seen a police officer ever charged and convicted with murder? It's always involuntary or voluntary manslaughter versus where if I go out and I commit the same type of act that somebody with a gun and a badge commits, what I'm charged and convicted with would be the total opposite.
Because he's in the commission of his duty.
Yeah, he got that gun and that badge.
Commission of duty?
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's hard to fathom that though.
By all accounts, a police officer gets up in the morning, he takes a shower, brushes his teeth, puts on his uniform, and goes to work. I doubt if any police officer puts on his uniform, even if he's a bigot, saying, after this shower and I put on this uniform, I'm going to go kill me somebody today. So that's in the commission of his job. So that kind of takes the murder. Murder is when I don't like you, I got a reason to kill you, and I'm just going to eliminate your life. I might not do it today, I might do it tomorrow, or maybe I got mad at you right now and I pull out my gun and shoot you. I have no professional stature to protect me because I'm just a regular a regular citizen that killed someone. So that's the difference.
What if you got what if an officer was on his beat, as you would say, like around a certain area, and he always had a certain confrontation with this same black kid or something like that, the same black group of people he always had a situation with. Like, would that be something over time if it was to be like a psychological withdrawal on his end, if he know he got to go out here and experience them again, but he not getting no help? Right. Wouldn't that still be him? Wouldn't that same constitute as the same thing as him getting up?
Same scenario. This police officer got a beef with someone. He goes home, gets off duty, puts on his blue jeans and his leather jacket and his combat boots, and he comes back to that area and shoots the guy. That's murder. You see what I'm saying?
So what about the off-duty officer that shot an alley and killed Raquel Boyd? He didn't have no uniform. He was off duty. And he wasn't charged with murder.
Well, they're going to say...
not to cut you off. I just want our listeners to get a better understanding as to who you speaking about when you say they.
Well, you know who they are.
White supremacy pals.
Right.
It's supremacy things, y'all.
You know who they are. Now, if I did that, I'd probably be on my way to Stateville.
Really? And it's only because of you being who you are?
It would be safe to assume.
So is that why we don't see...
If you ever notice, when a black officer does something, his sentence is much higher.
Yeah.
Much more strict. There was a guy out in, I think, at Forest Park or Park Forest. He shot the man with a beanbag. Remember that?
He shot the man with a beanbag?
Yeah, okay, here's what happened.
Deployed the beanbag.
A man was in a senior citizen home. He had a butcher knife, much longer than the little 4-inch penknife. Yeah, he had a butcher knife. The police were called. When the police got there, they couldn't take the knife from him. So to keep him from hurting himself and hurting others, the supervisor ordered that they shoot him with a beanbag. They shot him with the black officer shot him with a beanbag. After they subdued the guy, they asked him, are you okay? You need medical attention? He refused medical attention. The next day, he died. The officer was charged with murder.
What?
Yeah. He won, he got off.
Right.
But he never should have even been charged.
Right, I don't get that.
That had probably, in my
Wasn't that an order too? It was a direct order to do so?
Right. That's what got him off. But he never should have been there. Because a beanbag cannot be construed as a lethal weapon. But that's the way the law is for... You know that.
Right.
Yeah,
the law for us is not the same
And
law.
and the law for us has changed so much that now, they always say blacks are killing blacks. And you would get the same time for not killing someone as you would if you were to kill someone.
Well, I've arrested black murderers. And next year I see them walking down the street.
Exactly.
But if you was to go to Barrington somewhere and kill someone, you're going to jail. And you're going to be there a very long time.
And that's the issue that we have, where it's like, that's the first thing, black people say when it's white officers that kill us, like, oh, but what about black on black crime? It's not to say that, we don't kill each other, because we do. We know that. But the issue is that when we kill each other, we gonna get forever and a day. Whereas a white officer kills us, ain't nobody getting nothing. So do you think that, not to say that it would ever happen, but do you think that these killings would stop if police officers started getting the same amount of time as a regular person would get?
Oh, definitely.
But because they're protected by the system and the law, it'll never happen.
Well, first of all, none of his, no one that's there when it happens is gonna rat him out. He's gonna have to. They're not gonna help the situation.
Right. They're gonna cover it up, help to cover it up.
That's pretty much been the way of most
It's
police
always
departments.
been
Yeah, it's
yeah.
always been going on.
Even
So what you're doing now is you're seeing something that's institutionalized that's been going on ever since the Chicago fire and the reconstruction of the Chicago Police Department.
because even now with video, they can still construe the story to benefit the law because they created it.
Of course they
Right.
do.
So they know how to use it.
They know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
So we have to arm ourselves with knowledge on how to deal with them, how to deal with
I
the
agree.
law to turn it in our favor. That's why I was saying that really there's no training for young kids today how to deal
Should it
with the
be?
police. Yes, it should be. They should know that if a police officer touches you on the arm and you pull away, that constitutes a
Resisting arrest.
Remember when we was growing up? I don't know if y'all had it in East End or whatever, but I remember in our schools. Remember we used to have like police officers come to the school.
Yeah, their program.
Yeah, we don't have that no more.
No.
So I think that's probably might be a problem as to what it is. Because when I was little, we had that, so
Yeah,
we knew
their program.
to some degree. Like,
But
you know,
at the same time, too, we didn't have the privatization of prisons, whereas now it's a business to where you need
need that
these
youth.
people, right,
So
in
don't give
these
them-
buildings.
don't give them that
Don't give them
training
that
because-
knowledge and that information that will prevent them from going into these very buildings
that's
that
true.
were built
That's
for
very
them.
true. That's very true.
Yeah,
Because
but-
around that time span when we was that age, that was the time when it was really becoming more privatized to
Yeah.
do so. So I can kind of see how that play hands in hand now. So now it's up to the parents then.
Yeah.
It's up to the
Basically, it's
parents.
up to the parents.
But if you're a parent, you don't know, what the hell can you teach your kid?
Because if you have a kid that smokes weed and gets high, and they always have weed on them, you're like, okay, if you have this amount, you can go to jail or you can be detained. Whereas if you have this amount, then, maybe they'll tell you put it out or something else may happen to you. But now in certain cases where if you get picked up and you know your rights and you're like, okay, I only have X, Y, Z amount of weed, they'll say, oh no, you got that. And they'll pull out some more from their pocket and now you're going to jail. So I just feel like you all said, parents, and I don't know, maybe try and bring back some type of system.
It does. I feel like it does need to be some type of organization that is created, because if the very people we supposed to call to protect us are the ones that are murdering us and the ones that are oppressing us, who else we supposed to call on?
Right. I agree.
And I feel like, it's fact that that's the whole reason why the Black Panthers were, destroyed, because they were too powerful. That was a threat against the system that is currently in place.
And if you get another organization that even tries to attempt that, it'll get taken down before you can get that far.
So this knowledge has to be disseminated from family to family.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Parents.
Yeah.
It has to be done at home. My generation didn't have DARE. The police dared us.
That was out there.
That was out there.
Like, nigga, you better not say nothing back.
Can we loop that like 2 times? I'm just saying.
We had the real DARE. We did. Clown if you want.
I dare you to not do what I tell you.
So what is your opinion on the situation now with Rahm Emanuel, the position that he has put himself in, where people are calling for his resignation, along with Anita Alvarez?
The only thing I think he did wrong is he didn't use transparency. He didn't, it is what it is. Either this guy lost it or whatever it was, that ain't right.
Yeah.
So when the guy puts himself out there that far, You're supposed to back. If your son smelled so bad that it was fogging up the whole house, you would ask him to go outside. And that's your son.
Yeah.
So why would you try to hide something that discredits 10,000 other police officers? Make their jobs harder.
Right.
You knew this was a hard job when you took it. You knew you have to use self-control beyond.
In his mind, he was doing the lesson.
Like we were talking about the cigarette butt. A lady thumped a cigarette butt in my face. I was mad enough to shoot her. I've had people spit in my face. I had a guy who I was trying to be nice to kick a paddy wagon door and hit me in the forehead. When you're a public servant and a police officer, you're going to take abuse, physically and mentally.
On a daily basis?
On a daily basis. And if you don't have the right mental fortitude for that, then you shouldn't take it. And if you don't have the right mental fortitude, you should have been weeded out before you got the job. And if you get sick while you're on the job, your supervisors and superiors should see this in you and make the necessary adjustments. Especially if an officer has a history of
complaints.
Complaints
they
and
was saying,
causing the system.
right, and that's the thing. They were saying that,
now, when I was a police
Van
officer,
Dyke had 21 complaints.
they wouldn't let me have that many complaints.
Of course not.
That never would have happened.
Do you think like some or Chicago Police Department as well as some others should kind of hire like a psychiatrist and maybe like
but don't they go
a
through,
doctor?
but don't y'all go through psychological training when
you
y'all going through the academy though? Don't they run tests on y'all?
You have a psychological eval before you even before you even go in the academy.
But that's just that. You never have another one afterwards though, right?
Well, you're supposed to have one if you show a need.
If you show
a need for that.
But if this is a high stressful job,
it's a high stressful job.
They should go every off day, every day.
not every off day. No, they should be like
once a month or
no,
once
that
a
should be
week.
annually like physicals are.
Yeah, like once a week because.
Okay, well, why should it be that? If I'm a police officer, I never get no beefs. Why I need to go get a psychological for?
Because one day you might get that beef and take that beef too far.
And I might get that beef even if I go get the eval. But if a person habitually is a problematic person, then that should send a flag up that something is wrong with this module. He's not performing right. Something's wrong. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Just because I go once a year for eval, some people are sick and they're able to pass tests.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
You adjust to it.
You
I know this test coming up. Let me go ahead and prepare
Let me
for
go
it.
and prepare myself.
Right.
So that's what happens. But there is a solution. There are solutions. And they're just going to have to buckle down and find out what they are. But I think there's going to be more transparency now. I think that with the Justice Department, I don't know. Well, the Justice Department don't even hire a lot of blacks.
That's
so it's
if
like
we got rid of Ron, who we finna get now? Who gonna be the man now? Please, like,
Right.
That's all I want to know.
No, it's an article that I pulled up, and it speaks to the former independent police review authority supervisor who was Lorenzo Davis, and he talked about how he was fired because he refused to obey orders to reverse his findings that police were not justified in shooting suspects 6 times in the past 8 years. And it just speaks to the corruption that is inside this system, which is the police department, to where you try to do your job the right way, but because you won't go along with the corruption, you end up fired. So it's like, even with the transparency, even with all of that, it's like, how do you fix a broken system? Don't you have to abolish the system itself first? Like, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I felt like I couldn't be a police officer, because I feel like once you're around corruption for so long,
you become corrupt.
It's hard to get up every day and go do the same thing day in and day out and think affects you.
Become jaded.
When you play in mud, you get dirty.
Right.
And feel like that's what we see with police departments, not only here in Chicago, but across this country. Whereas you can have the greatest intentions in the world, but if this system that you're working within is foul, you gonna stink.
It's gonna go unawarded.
Yeah.
You know, it may go awarded to your heart.
You know, I worked in different capacities. I worked in gang operations. I worked in special operations. I worked in organized crime. And when you're a human being and you have compassion for your fellow man, I don't have to carry a gun now that I'm retired.
Right.
Because I virtually don't have any enemies. Because I never, if a person was going to jail with me, I would say, hey man, don't kill the messenger. I'm not the person that did what you did. You're in here because of what you did. I don't have anything to do with that. And I've gotten myself in situations where I'm arguing with a guy and I said, wait a minute, man, let's slow down. Let's start this all over again. I'm going to calm down and you're going to calm down and we're going to have a different kind of dialogue because I am the police, and if I wanted to enforce it, I could overpower whatever anger you have. And usually when you talk to people like they're human beings, it makes a difference on how they react.
It does.
Tone goes a long way.
Like if they get out the car all animated, say, whoa, whoa, brother, calm down. I might even tell a joke, say something funny. I'm just stopping you because you look like a car that I'm looking for, even if I'm lying.
Right.
You look like a car of a guy that did something the other day. I thought this was his car. I see that you're not the one, but now that I got you out, let me see your license. It's just like any other job. You know, it's a way to smooth do it and it's a way to rough do it.
Right.
And you have to learn how to read people. And I don't think these young guys now are being trained to read people. Plus, the educational level is so high now that these aren't people that really were on the street. They went from college to the police department, from their mom's house to the police department. So a lot of times,
You haven't had the experience.
if you don't have
of
a
dealing-
record and you don't smoke marijuana and you're able to pass the test, obviously you haven't been out in the street.
Right. And then the only time you could be around black people is when you catch the metro downtown.
Right.
Come on. You ain't been on the south side?
Right.
On the west
So
side?
now I got a guy in my face, hey, dog. So now, wow, this black
I don't even know what this means.
I don't even know what this
I ain't never.
means.
This is my first
I
time
ain't
seeing
know none of
this.
this.
So now I got this
Right.
gun, this badge, and now I'm afraid because I don't know what you capable of doing.
Right. So it's a lot of that going on.
And if that's so known, then how come the police department keeps hiring people that have no experience in dealing with the very people that they're trained to police?
Because it's the system. It's the way they've been doing things since 1863.
Yeah.
It's the way they've been doing things all along. You know, Chicago is, if you know, I don't know if you know this, but Chicago is always 10 or 15 years behind the cutting edge of law enforcement. I went on a vacation once to a place called Springfield, Ohio in the late 70s, early 80s. They already had computers in the car. But in Chicago, this alderman has to introduce it to the council. The council has to
City
approve
council.
it, and then
Find
the mayor
all the
has to
funds
approve
and-
it. By that
yeah.
time, maybe 5 years might have went past.
Right.
So Chicago has never been the cutting edge of law enforcement. It's more like taking a Phillips, a regular screwdriver, and a flathead screwdriver, and putting it in a Phillips screw. It'll fit, but it ain't screwing in as good as it could.
And
Right.
it's going to take twice as
And
long.
it's going to take twice as long, and that's archaic, and that's the way Chicago. Well, you got to realize, they just in the 80s, you still had to carry a revolver. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Other departments all around the United States were carrying semi-automatic
Automatic weapons. Right.
But in Chicago, everything moves slow because
Money.
it's a buyout.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be approved. Maybe Smith & Wesson got to talk to this alderman or this councilman before he can get his product, get a contract with the city. Getting a contract with Chicago is not easy. So that we don't have the best equipment. We don't have the best police officers. And it's not because the people don't try. Most police officers in Chicago are good police officers, white and black. But all you need is maybe 10% to make the whole department look bad.
Right.
I wouldn't imagine there's maybe only 5 other police officers that would shoot maybe 10, maybe 15. I'll be liberal. maybe 15 police officers that would shoot somebody 15 times. It ain't many, but he's the one in the news. He's the face of the police department. So,
what's the difference between a law versus a citation? Like
a municipal ordinance, you mean?
yeah.
What's the difference? Give it to me one more time.
So like breaking the law versus a municipal ordinance. Like you pull me over because I may not have a city sticker, or you write me a ticket because I don't have.
Anytime a ticket is issued, that's an MCC code. That's a municipal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a funny thing to note. It is unlawful to impound anyone's property unless it's a crime, preferably.
You said it's unlawful?
To impound anyone's property
Mm-hmm.
for municipal code.
Really?
But they put boots on cars.
They sure in the hell do.
But that's...
And they tow your car if you ain't got
Right.
insurance, proof of insurance.
You look at any law book. But that's the ins and outs of the law, and that's...
But how do we avoid these things? And if what you're saying is true, that it's unlawful to impound somebody's vehicle because of codes, you know...
Well, I just said that to let you know that that's how Cook County...
That's how it works.
State of Illinois...
That's how corrupt it is.
in Chicago.
And this is what funds the city. Where you gotta. So when you were police, did you guys have quotas that you had to meet as far as writing tickets?
No, there are no quotas. People pick out what works best for them. I was good at bringing in guns and drugs.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Somebody might not want to deal with that because that's dangerous. I got shot doing that.
Right.
He might only write tickets. That's safe. All he got to do is jump out of the car, put a ticket on the car, and get back in the car. That's what he likes to do.
But you ain't committed no crime, though.
Another police officer might like to do prostitution. So he runs around arresting prostitutes. That's what he likes. So everybody finds their niche. So, but there are no quotas.
Another question. On the side of police cars, we see the words protect and serve. Who are you protecting and serving?
Each other.
You're supposed to protect the populace. Everyone deserves the right to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people need to be served. It's on a case-to-case basis. Now, it all depends what you think service is.
Yeah. Is it a difference between a police officer and a peace officer, or is it all the same?
Same thing. It's the same thing.
Did you all know like where the trouble areas were, or like the high volume areas?
Yeah,
like
That's obvious. The city's segregated.
That's the city segregated. The places that have the less amount of income, the highest density of population, those are the trouble areas, and those are the areas that generally have more crime.
The Hunteds, the West Side.
Those are the areas that we
Inglewood.
generally.
Yep, Inglewood.
And now that
Auburn.
they've tore down the projects,
It's scattered
it's
out.
spread out. See, once it was all in the projects for the most part, and they kept it restricted. You had Cook
Right.
County Sheriff, State Police. Everybody drove around those perimeters, and those people tended to stay into the cells. Now they're in any area that has apartment buildings and inexpensive homes. Those are the new projects.
yeah,
So you only need one family on the
They
block to
tone down.
contaminate the block.
Inexpensive
exactly.
homes.
Yeah. So
When it pertains to the drug problem, isn't it safe to say that it's almost like running a rat maze? You know, where they say, "Oh, it's a war on drugs," but we not the ones that bring these drugs into the country. So it's the police's job to find the criminals, but aren't the real criminals the ones on these high
on a much
positions?
higher level than Chicago.
Right, and then he
No, that's what I'm just saying.
That's the FBI.
When America decided
Right.
that Cuban cigars were illegal, you don't see no Cuban cigars. When they decided that they're not going to deal with Cuba and anyone from Cuba, there were no Cuban cigars around. So if they can do that, they could eliminate the other.
They just don't want to.
I'm not saying they don't want to. Whatever reason, it hasn't been done. It could be hard, but it can be done.
Right.
That's how they get their label.
That's true.
But just like in Arab countries, a drug dealer he gets his head cut off in some countries.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
So if you get decapitated for selling weed, you're not gonna sell. You're not gonna get many guys.
Nobody gonna touch that.
You're not gonna get many guys selling weed. I'm not saying we should be that
cruel.
strict in America,
Right.
but any law that they really want to enforce can be enforced. Marijuana became illegal because the Mexicans were bringing it here in the 20s, and that was a way to do what not Ted Turner, what's his name, was running for president.
Oh, Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's kind of like a Donald Trump move. That was a move to arrest and detain those people.
Because you didn't like them.
You didn't like them.
I watched a documentary about that where they were talking about that's why they, started coming up with different laws to lock up certain demographics of people.
Right.
Because it was at one point, methamphetamines was legal. You weren't going to jail for using meth.
In Chicago, a case report would read, "Why did you stop him?" Because he was in a known drug and high crime area.
What's a known drug, high crime area?
Well, those are the ones who statistically, they make a lot of arrests and there's a lot of drugs here. So that means that all black people are in a high drug and crime area. See, the laws are a little different. They make the laws as they go.
Yeah.
They make the laws. They used to have a gang loitering law where it was illegal for more than 3 or 4 gang members to stand on a corner. So as the rules and laws got more lax, the crime rate goes up. And that's just the way it is. In our community in the 60s, in Morgan Park, they closed the police station.
Why?
They didn't need it.
That's hard to believe.
On 111th, over there by Morgan Park High School, they closed the police station.
Because they didn't need it.
During the 60s. It didn't get open again until Martin Luther King got killed.
Because there was a need for it then. Because there was so much civil disobedience.
Right, civil disorder.
Wow.
So before that, there was no need for it. And that's all black.
So I think
That's crazy.
No, but I think that's important to hone in on, whereas like you only need police if there's a need for them. So
Right.
if we policed our own communities, will we really need police then?
Yeah. Because after you catch the bad guy, what are you going to do with him?
That's true.
Adjudicate the punishment too? Now you're in violation of his rights.
Shit, but the police officer in violation of our rights as well. So what's the difference?
That's what I'm saying.
Shit, they ain't one.
Me myself, I'd rather get handcuffed and go to jail and go to prison.
Then
Once
get your head cut off.
Once I was just monitoring the radio, and it was it's a certain area around 95th that pretty much police their own neighborhood. They don't make a lot of police calls or anything. A guy had broken in a house. The neighbors beat the man into submission and held him for the police to come. Now, he died the next day from his injuries, but they policed their own. So I'm saying is, not being a professional, and it's personal because it's your neighborhood. It's your next door neighbor, it's your aunt, it's your cousin. So now if you take the law into your hands, you might go a little overboard, just like he did.
Right.
Yeah. So where do you stop? You grab the man, hold him to the police get there, or do you take him to the police station yourself? There's a lot of things that need to be worked out for that to happen.
That's true. It does need to be some type of balance, some type of order restored. It's just that,
There was a time in the 50s and 60s, most men ran their block. You come home, my father came home from work, and there was some guys standing out there. He said, "Hey, what you guys standing around here for? You don't live around here." And if the other men on the block saw it, they would come out their houses.
But you had men, though.
Right.
You had more men in communities, whereas today, most of our men is incarcerated.
Right. So, I don't know what the solution is, gentlemen.
It's a vicious cycle.
It
vicious
is.
cycle. But I'm glad that I had a chance to touch on some of these things with you younger guys because, I'm in my mid-60s. It's just about over for me, but you and your kids and your grandkids, the world that they're going to have in the city that they're going to have, it's got to be a better way than this.
It gotta be.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful job bringing it to the forefront in the dialogue. You know, a lot of times I used to be so frustrated. I would say, "Why do black people talk so much? Why they picketing? Why they doing this?
Right.
You know, do something more physical than that."
Yeah.
But we are a minority here.
Yeah, we are.
We're not the majority, so anything that we do can be suppressed. There's a whole nother level of policing that Chicago hasn't seen. There's a whole nother level. Now, most police departments only hire ex-military, sniper-type special forces guys. Those guys always get hired.
Yeah, and I was listening
What
to.
do you think they do with those guys? They're waiting. Their job is to wait.
Until it gets crucial.
Right, that's
It's the
their job.
militarization
That's
of the
their
police department.
That's their job.
Yeah.
American Sniper.
I mean, that's why we started this, though, so we can kind of have this type of dialogue, because this is stuff that affect us, our kids, aunties, uncles, grandparents, every day, you know what I'm saying, they dealt with. So we just try to touch on this stuff so people can get a different insight.
Right.
And get some perspective.
Because if you make your own personal opinion, like I have a different view of it just talking to you.
Now, you know, you can
know what I mean?
remove
Which
the
I-
emotion
which
from
I-
it.
Yeah, which I never would have known before, you know what I mean? Because I just was going off social media, my interactions with dealing with police and what I've seen.
Because
in
we've
my
had
family
our
and
own
stuff like
personal
that.
interactions. I remember back when I was at home, I was getting out the car with one of my buddies, and we was walking to the mall. And all of a sudden, these police just started running towards us, telling us to stop and put our hands up. And I'm thinking, like, we just got here. What the fuck you talking to me for? So I was emotional. I was irate, and they telling me to stop. And if not, they was going to tase me and to pull out my license and identify myself. I'm like, fool, I haven't even done that. I just got here.
You would have been much better served in yourself if you just said, "Officer, why are you stopping me? I'm just going shopping.
Yeah.
Would you like to see my ID?" And you're talking in a low mellow tone like
Yeah.
this.
But see,
You would have to be quiet. But now
not
you
having
know that.
right, but see, not having that training, I think that speaks to something that you said earlier.
Try it.
I went through that with a pull. I got pulled over. It was something simple. I was coming out of an eye place, getting new glasses or something. I was in an all-white neighborhood. I was in Palos Heights.
Shout out Palos Heights. You know you wasn't supposed to be
You
there.
got that kind of money?
That's where my doctor was at. But when I was coming out, though, he pulled me over, and when he approached the car, I mean, I talked in that tone that you gave. It wasn't a just like, man, what you pulling me over for, blah blah.
It worked.
You know, yeah, what? Yeah, we had a whole conversation for 25 more minutes. That
right.
was regular.
Right.
You know,
I've seen it happen, and growing up in the 60s, I had to do that.
Yeah.
that was right.
I had to do that because Commander Burge, I lived in that area. I grew up around there. So coming up, it was nothing for police to take a walkie-talkie and choke you up or beat you in the head. So you had to restrain yourself.
Yeah.
We didn't have no Office of Police standards. We didn't have no cell phones where somebody could take a picture of what's happening. They beat you up and just left.
But shit, sometime even today, as we saw with the footage with Eric Garner, it don't even matter if you got footage or not, because even with that situation, that man was choked out on camera. Nobody was charged or convicted with anything.
That's the guy that
In New York was selling loose cigarettes on the side.
but they told him to move. They did. Now in the 60s, the police would ride up on the corner, see us stand on the corner, and say, "Hey guys, I'm going around the block. When I come back, you better be gone."
Gotta watch colors.
We were gone. Or if we saw a policeman down there detaining somebody, we didn't go over there. Now, what you stopping him for? And what you got to do with this? What do you got to do with this? Now it's a crowd gathering.
Because you almost have to in today's society.
But to protect yourself, why would you go over there? You see it's something funky happen that's not your relative, is nobody you know. Why would you put yourself into that?
Shit, because you look like me. And I'm of the mindset.
But
where,
I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. You're not wrong for saying that.
Right.
But we're surviving, and we're here because the slaves that did what they need to do to survive did what they needed to do. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we're going to change into something else, we might not be here because we don't have the numbers or the monetary structure to affect any kind of change through violence. We don't have the numbers. We still live in the grid. The expressway blocks off different neighborhoods. You know, and that was designed by President Eisenhower. They can still roll tanks down the middle of the expressway, aim at an arc, and blow up all the Chatham, all the neighborhoods around. They still can do that.
That was called the King Alfred plan.
Yeah, that's still in effect.
Yeah.
That ain't changed.
No.
So, and when the police get overwhelmed, who do they call? The state. The militia.
So going back to your point when you brought up about state police and how they interface with people differently, why is it that local police don't receive the same type of training that state police officers receive?
Well, first of all, in Chicago, we have nepotism. So a guy can get hired by the police if he's totally unsituated or just have the faculties to be a policeman, just because of his clout.
Right.
We do
or who
that.
he related to.
We have that here in Chicago, and there's a lot of other reasons. People live in a segregated situation. If a white guy possibly lived in a building or on the block with other black kids, and he went to kindergarten, he grew up with them, I'm quite sure
he's better qualified to police the people because he grew up around them. So
we don't have any neighborhoods like that here.
Right, because they all segregated.
Right.
But I feel like if you didn't grow up around these type of people, then you don't need to be policing them because you don't have the experience in order to be able to effectively deal with them on a day-to-day basis.
That means they would hire less of them.
Shit, that's what
of
needs
us.
to happen.
Less of them. So that's not going to happen.
Right. That's why he said that way. Less of them,
Right.
more of us.
But
that's the reality,
Right,
though, and those are
right.
some of the solutions that really need to happen. If we really talking about real change and changing the way that people interface with police, because right now, if you look at how black people view police officers, you don't want to talk to them, you hate them, you have a stereotype about them because everything that we see, not to say that all are bad, but what else do we have to go off of?
Right.
But
Then
what
if
if...
But we're just as bad as they are because they look on TV and see all the blacks are dope dealers, prostitutes.
And
That's
if
by
we-
design, though.
We're just
did-
as bad as them because we're judging all police officers, all Caucasian police officers, by the actions of a few.
But if we did have a lot of black police officers, then you would have blacks who get pulled over and stuff be like, oh, come on, man, like, look out for me. Or you look just like me, or you know my cousin, or come on. Like, we would still look for, like, a handout because, like, you know, you look like me, we from the same neighborhood. So we would kind of want them to turn the other cheek as far as, like, what we're doing, the crime we committing, or...
But it's not even...
whatever.
If you're a black police officer, you're going to care more about the drug dealers selling drugs by the school.
True.
You're going to care more about the situations that affect our community more than they will.
They don't give a damn. They just policing stereotypes.
Right.
True.
They getting a
You're right.
check. So it don't really mean much
I
to them.
still get typed, and I'm an old man. I still get typed. Get out the car. I said, I got a badge. And I have a weapon. You know. So it never stops.
So what's the nature, like, what causes for police to tell people to get out of the car? Like, when you're instructed to get out of the car as a citizen,
They're trying to neutralize a threat.
but if I don't know, if you haven't informed me of what the threat actually is,
I don't have to tell you what the threat
Yeah.
then what the hell I
don't.
got to get out the car for then?
Because they feel threatened.
Shit, I feel threatened. You telling me to get out this damn car?
under the
You armed, I'm
Constitution-
unarmed, but you telling me to get out.
under the constitutional law.
That's
Especially
the way
since
it
we
is.
have the right to bear arms. We have a constitutional right to bear arms. And with that right comes responsibility. Responsibility is if a police officer, he don't know if you got a gun or not. So he asks you to get out the car so he can look in the car.
Nah.
Okay, well, look at it this way. Okay, you try and get your gun license, right?
I already got it.
Okay, so he could run your name and that could come up. He don't know if you got a gun in the car or not, so he gonna tell you to get out.
I don't have a concealed carry. I just have a FOIA card.
He don't know that though.
I ain't combative.
And the people that they are most scared of is the ones that don't have an FOI card.
Yeah.
The people who do most damage are the ones that don't have the proper credentials to have a gun. So when you're driving through a high crime area, a designated high crime area, you're going to be asked to move yourself from the car. When my youngest son went to college, he wanted a Chevy Caprice. I said, no, son, I can't buy you that. That's not a car for a college
That's a stereotypical car.
That's a stereotypical car.
That if you got a Caprice, you sell dope automatically.
My partner was off work one day, and I had to work with a Caucasian guy, and he saw a big Mercedes 500
Okay.
CSL, and he said, "Stop that car." I said, "Why?" He looked suspicious. I said, "Why?"
What the hell is suspicious?
I said, "Why? What did he do?" I just don't like the way he looked. He doesn't look right. We pulled the guy over. The guy was an attorney. So when we got back in the car, I said, "Man, you had me get out to the car. It's cold out here, man. It's 20 degrees above zero." I said, "From now on, I critique the black people we stopped, and you critique the white ones." I knew the guy wasn't on nothing because the kind of car. It didn't have a 22-inch rims on it.
Right.
Music wasn't booming. The guy had on a suit. I knew this wasn't, you know what I'm saying?
It wasn't that case.
It could have been, but the laws of averages is that it wasn't. But by their typical Moors and the way they think, big car, I can't afford it. So
You shouldn't be able to either.
you shouldn't be able to either. So what are you doing to be able to afford this car? You're a black
See,
man.
and how do you find out if a person has that type of mindset before they even come to police?
You don't. You can't. There's no way possibly you could know that. But if you had more black supervisors and you got guys who work for you and they're like that, the other guys are going to tell you, hey, chief, I don't like working with him. Don't put him. You got white guys that'll say, I don't want to work with him no more. Because when he goes to jail or he does something stupid, I don't want to be around. Mm-hmm. So at that point, because the other guys will tell on him. They'll tell their supervisor, I don't want to work with that guy. Or they'll tell the desk crew, when you make out your sheets for tomorrow, don't put my name with his name, because I ain't working with him. So that's how you get around bad guys. Now that guy was a bad guy, and his partner continued to work with him. I don't know what his problem was, because now he might wind up in the penitentiary too. And everybody who falsified a police report should be held accountable.
They should, but they're not, especially when you got a supervisor.
They will be. They will be in this because it's brought to light.
Right. All right. Well, in closing, we just want to thank you, for your expertise. Just shedding some light on a lot of things that ourselves and other people, may not have had, the knowledge about. And I think that speaks to what you said earlier. Whereas, the knowledge and the information is one of the biggest things that will help us moving forward. Where we are informed about how do you interface, with police officers, because you do need training on these different things, especially, being black in America,
And there's no reason to say anything that you're not asked. There's no reason to ask any questions. He'll tell you everything you need to know. If you just stand there and look at him, he's got to tell you everything you need to know. And so by doing that, you're disarming him psychologically. What are you stopping me for? He could say, because I can. And that would heighten the situation. He could say that.
To bait you into...
He could say that. And he's legally right, because I can. I have a right to stop you. I have a right to stop and detain you and to ask you where you're going or why you're going. I have a right to see your driver's license or your identification. I have the right to ask permission to search your car. If you say no, I have a right to have your car towed to a place where it can be towed. If you pull away from me, I have a right to use whatever force necessary to render you
until you comply.
Into compliance. That's the law. And a lot of people don't know the law, but they think they do, and they find themselves in trouble. So if you don't know the law, the best thing is just to be cool. Black people are the coolest people in the world. We had to be to survive.
He ain't lying. He ain't lying, man.
In this day and term, in these days, be cool. Just be cool. While you're being cool, you're looking at his badge number, You're looking at the license plate number on the car. You're looking at the B tag on top of the car. If I'm all animated and upset,
You're not even paying attention
I
to
can't
those
get
things.
that. So I'm checking you out. And the police officer, I've seen bigots try to bait people. But the guy said, your name is Officer Chawowski? Okay, your star number is so-and-so. Okay. What are you stopping me for? Now, you've already taken this to it. So now he knows that you're not just a regular street urchin, a ghetto snipe. You're not a common ghetto snipe now.
Right.
He don't know what you are. But he knows that you know enough about him that anything you do to him can be reported. And that's what we need to do. Calm down and get out of that emotionalism.
Yeah, and I think, it's hard for us to do, and that's why I say we need training, because when you look at us, we are a very emotional people. When you look at everything that we've been subjected to, we've never had any type of, therapy for anything.
Right. Even the civil rights workers were trained on how to deal with Bull Connors and this stuff. They had classes.
Yeah. Yeah, going into the deep south and learning how to deal with these people.
So what's the difference now?
That's true. Good point.
We ain't got no training. We just
Maybe
going off emotion.
Operation Push or one of those situations like that. Can do, you know what I'm saying? That have a venue.
Yeah.
To give classes like that, but something needs to be done. Civil rights people had to do it. They were sicking dogs and hoses and stuff on them. And they were sitting in counters. How to react.
Sit-ins and being
how
spit
to cover
on
yourself to keep from getting hurt.
Yeah.
How to be a passive resistor. And we don't know how to do that.
Black Lives Matter.
Pray for me on that, because I'm more Malcolm X type. So
Well, even Malcolm X has some suave. He has some cool about him.
He did.
He didn't just pop off and, what you stopping me for? I'm Malcolm X.
Right. It's X, bitch.
and he know the law.
Right. We know he had a carbine. So, but I'm saying even Malcolm X knew, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He did it in a manner. I was taught that I am superior to Caucasians. Mm-hmm. I know that's not right, because that's bigoted views too. But in that superiority, I have been taught as a child to outthink them. I know I can outmuscle them, and they know that too. But to outthink them, that's really what, when you defeat them and break them down.
That's what a power.
And I know this is a little joke. I was working with a white guy once, and we were sitting in our office. And I said to him, don't you feel embarrassed and ashamed? He said, for what? I said, you're a white guy. You could have been anything you wanted to be.
Hey, Dick Gregory said that, man.
And this is the best job
that you could have came up with. Like, you white, but Dick Gregory made that joke. He said to be a white boy and be a cop, I mean, you ain't had nothing else going on.
You had nothing else going on.
You could have been the president of the United States. You chose to be a cop.
So with that in mind, you always try to outthink your adversary.
Yeah.
You can't outmuscle everybody.
Right.
You can't outmuscle the police. That radio is something else.
Yeah.
Because when he pulls you over, other police 2 or 3 blocks away,
they coming.
They already know that he pulled you over. They already know.
That's why they swoop in on you so fast. When you see the third, second cop come,
2 and 3 blocks away. And they already know that they pulled you over. I pulled over 3 black male with mustaches. That's the description. Black man with dreadlocks, mustache. That's everybody walking down the street. That's why if there's a crime spree or something going on, go in the house. Make yourself scared. Why even put yourself out there? Why even be out there? Mm-hmm. If you know that there's something going on.
Right.
We all fit the description.
Being out there.
We all fit the description of
what they say,
because they don't really look at us.
They look through us.
They look through you.
So what would you say is the best way to go about arming yourself with this information so that we can teach each other moving forward instead of reacting off of our emotions? Like, do you just start at home? Do you get with like-minded individuals? Do you...
I was at a stoplight once, and this black guy had his baby in the back seat with the music. Doonga, 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 doonga. I say, man, he's pumping that little kid up. So it's awfully hard if you hear African war chants, if that's what you listen to every day. So now you a warrior and you gonna be aggressive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In the 60s, they knew that we was hot under the collar. So what did they do? They gave us the Temptations. They gave us the Miracles.
Yeah.
They gave us music to calm us down.
Yeah.
And they giving your generation African war chants with all that boonga, boonga, boonga. What they're trying to do is pump you up in the war zone so they can put you in the penal institution. That's part of the plan. That's subliminal message.
So music has a big impact
It has a big
and an
impact.
influence on how we
Right.
go about interfacing with each other.
So that's something you guys gonna have to fix. You guys are gonna have to fix it. It's up to you guys.
All right.
You're right, though.
I tried, it didn't work. I tried. God knows I tried.
All right.
Well, I feel some of it worked because you sitting here today and you able to, impart your wisdom on us so that we can take it and, apply it to our everyday lives and, try to teach it, to other people and use our platform in a way where it can reach the masses to where they can educate themselves and arm themselves with this type of information. So we just not out here losing our lives aimlessly because of emotions. So yeah, man, like I said, we thank you again for coming. We thank you for, just shedding some light, on, this police brutality issue. And hopefully, we can come up with something to stop it, because it got to stop. Something got to change to where we just not dying for nothing.
Right. Well, gentlemen, it's been real interesting. And Allah Akbar to my brothers, and it's going to get better. It can't get no worse. It's going to get better. And like I said, we have the social media now, so now it brings world attention. The only thing that brought world attention to the 60s was when the dogs and stuff were sick.
Mm-hmm.
Then the news media took it overseas. America is very cognizant and interested on how the world looks at them.
Reputation.
Now, how can they tell the other world that they have problems?
Well, you can't even fix your problems at home.
And they got their own problems.
Exactly.
Right.
They can't tell them that they have racial abuses and stuff when they have them here. So there is a solution. But it's not going to be an aggressive one. That ain't going to work.
It's an intellectual one.
Right. The Americans took this country by force.
Sure the hell did.
You don't think they'll give it up?
By force.
Right.
Definitely not gonna happen.
Especially because, like you said, we don't have the manpower nor the resources to take it back from
We
them.
don't have the resources.
Yeah.
And anytime America sees a threat, whereas someone might be willing to help the blacks here, they get rid of them. Gaddafi
More Gaddafi.
was selling arms to Jeff Ford.
Yeah. The Arukans.
That's why
The Black Peace Stone Nation.
That's why he went to jail. So any country outside of America, Cuba is the same thing. Any country that shows any threat toward the masses or bridging the racial divide and making things more fair, they have a solution for that.
Cut them off.
Cut them off through assassination, like Malcolm, like Martin Luther. They have a solution for that. They have a solution for violence. So you got to try to do it intellectually. That's just my take.
All right.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Oh yeah. Before we close, man, we have to shout out our producer Tony and his company In Music Studios. Hey man, he been doing an awesome job with our podcast. We joined him
Right after episode 2.
Yeah, so the intro music that you hear when the podcast come on, that's all thanks to him. And we just want to shout him out, for being able to give us this platform to where we can talk about these issues and situations that affect black people on an everyday basis. So with that being said, man, follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook fan page. It's i94 Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. If you want to be a guest, if you have suggestions about topics, you can email us at i94podcast@gmail.com.
We out.
Yeah, it's a wrap.